MTG and me, this is Charles, and for the next 5 Theme Deck Thursdays, I'm planning to take a look at the Core 19 set Planeswalker decks. Alright, let's go. So the plan is to do these in color order: white, blue, black, red, green, which is perfect for the Core set 2019 Planeswalker decks given that they are monocolored. So one of the interesting changes to these versus previous iterations of the Planeswalker decks is in Core Set 19, they only include 1 booster card per pack, and there's also 5 distinct Planeswalker decks. This is really reminiscent of the early intro decks, which originally had 1 booster pack along with the deck. Now, of course, Wizards of the Coast did a solid in this case with these because they decreased the MSRP of these products by $4, which was roughly equivalent to 1 booster pack. So with all that being said, let's open up this one, Ajani the Wise Counselor, and see what we get. So since they started coming out with the Planeswalker decks, the packaging has essentially been identical every time. You get this little clamshell case, it's recyclable, fits neatly within the box, protects theoretically the Planeswalker card, and then you get a reusable deck box. I've also pointed out in the past these deck boxes are now glued on the bottom, the flap, so there's no double lip, which could often snag cards and cause damage to individual cards. These boxes will fit a 60 card sleeved deck, which is also another bonus. So each of the decks will also include one of these posters. Just gives you kind of a basic introduction to the deck and an overview. And unfortunately, while these used to include additional information such as the deck lists, the most recent iterations just don't. Then we have the ever-present quick reference card, which provides a little bit more of a mechanical analysis of Magic the Gathering, providing a little bit more in-depth information for. It's pretty interesting they're still using the exact same cards we had from Kaladesh Block advertising that, so they haven't been reprinted recently. Okay, then like I said, 1 booster pack and then the deck. So within each of the Planeswalker decks, Wizards of the Coast prints, to accompany the Mythic Rare, 2 Planeswalker deck specific rares, then 3 uncommons specific to the deck, and 4 commons specific to the deck. From a collector's perspective, this is fairly interesting because the cards are only available in the Planeswalker deck. Although historically there have been situations where these types of cards have been reprinted, say in a deck builder's toolkit. Let's take a quick look at the deck itself, and then we'll go back to those cards. So you get your assortment of basic lands, again because it's a monocolored deck. Then we get 2 copies of Ajani's Pridemate, 2 copies of Cavalry Drill Master, definitely a lifelink theme, 2 copies of Dwarven Priest, 2 copies of Herald of Faith, got 1 Inspired Charge, 1 Knight's Pledge, 2 copies of Luminous Bonds, 1 Mighty Leap, 2 Militia Buglers. There also seems to be a sort of a theme of 2 mana cost creatures here. 2 Oresco Swiftclaws, a Pegasus Courser, a copy of Revitalize, 3 copies of Rustwing Falcon, and then your copy of Meteor Golem. In the rare slots from Core 19, there's a copy of Mentor of the Meek, and then a copy of the supplementary rare, which can be found in the Deck Builder's Toolkit and Welcome decks, Sarah's Guardian. So if you, hopefully the camera will focus in on that. You see the collector number right there. It's actually number 284 of 280. So then we get to the Planeswalker deck specific cards. As I mentioned, you'll get 4 commons, 3 uncommons, and 2 rares in the Mythic Rare. And in previous iterations of the Planeswalker deck, if it was a 2-color deck, you'd also get a set or a number of the dual-colored dual lands. In this case, we end up with 4 copies of Silverbeak Griffin, which is a 2/2 flyer for 2. I mean, the rate is good, even though it's a double white cost. Then we have 3 copies of Court Cleric at uncommon, so a 1/1 lifelink creature that gets +1/+1 as long as you control an Ajani Planeswalker. And now the rares. So in previous Planeswalker decks, the rares exclusively acted as a tutor for you to search your library or graveyard for your Planeswalker card, and it was specific to the Planeswalker from the Planeswalker deck. and then put it into your hand. It also had a secondary effect. However, for Core Set 2019, the effect has changed dramatically. The effects all allow you to dig a certain amount into your library to look for something specific. So in this specific case, Ajani's Influence tells you to look at the top 5 cards of your library, revealing a white card from among them and putting them in your hand. Pretty much means you're going to guarantee a hit on this because, I mean, the likelihood of you hitting 5 lands is quite low. You buff 2 creatures by putting a +1/+1 counter on each of them. So from my perspective, I prefer the older style of Planeswalker deck rares that allow you to tutor up your Planeswalker because they provided an effect and tutored up your Planeswalker. Second last, let's take a look at Ajani Wise Counselor. And now for starters, I mean, the card is actually a pretty good looking card. So some people have complained in the past about how the Planeswalker deck Planeswalkers are a little bit plain or they're not really a fan of the art. I personally think Ajani is a pretty stellar art. I really like how his weapon there just crosses outside the frame. The foiling is crisp and clean. It just sort of makes the art pop a little bit. As far as effects, I mean, gaining 1 life for each creature you control implies you want to be playing some sort of go wide deck. The -3 giving creatures +2/+2, really combat oriented, and the -9 put X +1/+1 counter on where X is your life total. It's unfortunate only 1 target creature, but that's how these Planeswalkers tend to play them. So lastly, they include a booster pack in each of these decks. So let's take a look in here and see if we pulled anything good. I saw a white foil at the back there. So we start with a Catalyst Elemental, and a Rustwing Falcon, which we can play out of the box in the deck. Tolarian Scholar, an Act of Treason, Child of Night, Titanic Growth, another removal there in Luminous Bonds, a Vampire Neonate, an Haven Wind Mage, one of my favorite cards in the set, Psychic Corrosion, copy of Rogue's Gloves. Then we've got an Ajani's Pride Mate, also could slot that in, I guess. Then our rare, oh look at this, we got double rares. So our rare is Runic Armasaur, green. Then we have a Sun Cleanser. This really feels like an Energy Hoser card. So neat, it's in there, it's technically playable. We got a copy of Timber Gorge, which in the packs takes the place of the basic land when you get them, and then a zombie token. So that's a quick look overall at the Ajani Planeswalker deck. I saw a suggestion on Twitter asking if we were ever going to consider kind of meddling up these decks or seeing how we can improve their playability. And if that's something you're interested in, I'd love to hear about it. I'd also love to hear your suggestions or comments about the deck. Feel free to leave a comment below. And as always, thanks for watching.